Welcome to Best Way for 2022. We're so excited that you decided to join us for this journey. It's a 10-week journey that meets every Thursday at 7 p.m. And it is just amazing, the material that you're going to learn, and you're going to feel so much better as you go through this program. For those of you that are joining us now, you likely missed our in-person meeting. At the end of the lectures, we meet together in small groups and go over some material. Your table helpers have extra material that they'll be sharing with you then. And for those of you that are just joining online, you'll have to go through your workbook and get that as best as you can through there. Now, Dr.
Welcome
Nelson.
all of you to the Best Way program. This is, I think, the 5th or 6th year that we have done the Best Way program. I'm going to tell you a lot more about it during the lecture, but we're just very, very excited that each one of you have decided to join us for this Best Way program. And I'm especially excited this year because Dr. Elvin Adams is again going to be one of our table leaders for this program, and he's the one who wrote the Best Way program almost 50 years ago. It's gone through many iterations since he wrote it, and we have a completely rewritten program. So if you were one of those lucky individuals who was here last year, this program is new. You'll notice a lot of the concepts are unchanged because the secrets to healthy living don't change that much, but the slides are new, the helpers guides are new, the handouts that we're going to be supplying to you are new, and I'm just very excited about it. So Best Way is a faith-based weight loss program that we're going to explain a lot to you about tonight. And I just am so excited. I know it works. I had 2 of my patients last year join the program, and one of them lost 35 pounds. The other one lost 39 pounds over 10 weeks, which of course that's a bit more than average, but they did very, very well with the programs. This program will run for the next 10 weeks. It will be every Thursday evening from 7 o'clock to about 8:30 in the evenings. We'll try to be somewhat punctual and get off about 8:30. But some small groups just like to talk and they keep talking. But we'll try to be done by about 8:30 every single night. Our last meeting will be about March 30 or 31, whatever that Thursday is, the last Thursday in March. But there is the potential that as you get to know the people in your group and your table leaders that are helping you through this time, you may desire to get together outside of class and do things like shopping tours, do things like exercise meetups. You might want to meet at a track or meet at a trail and go hiking together. Might want to meet at the mall if the weather's inclement and walk back and forth and do some exercise. There will also likely be a, quotes, graduation program at the end, where those of you who are willing to, we'd ask that you give some reports about how it is the program went for you. So we're going to give a lot more information as this program goes forward. And I will review some of the tips on Zoom here a little bit later, but for right now, I want to respect your time. So I am going to have an opening prayer, and then I'm going to jump right into our medical lecture. The way our schedule will go in general is that we will have, after some short announcements, a medical lecture by a physician. I'm the one who's giving the medical lectures this year. Immediately following, we will have probably a time for questions and answers. And we'll give you more information about how to submit those questions a little bit later. And we'll ask Dr. Elvin Adams. I haven't run this by him yet, but he's such a smart guy that I'm pretty sure that he'll be able to answer the questions that we put to him. So we'll ask Dr. Adams some of those questions next week, not this week. And following the question and answers, we'll have a spiritual talk from Pastor Chris Anderson. Pastor Anderson is the pastor of the South Bay Seventh-day Adventist Church that is sponsoring this program. And I'm just really excited about his passion for healthy living. He'll probably tell you a little bit about himself. He's a marathon runner. He's a rock climber. He's into outdoor adventures such as backpacking and camping. And our church does a lot of healthy living activities based on his energy and activity level. I'll leave it at that. Immediately following his lecture, not tonight because we're starting a little bit late and we've got a lot to cover, but in the future, we're going to have an exercise segment by Dr. Laura Lucas, who is a physical therapist. And following that, we'll have some culinary highlights or recipes by Rachel. Rachel Detweiler is the main chef behind our Dinner with the Doctor program that many of you are familiar with. And so we'll hear some recipes from her. After that, the core of the Best Way program is actually the breakout group time. And as you can see, we're getting numbers in front of everybody's names. We're going to break you all up into different groups, and there are assigned group leaders and group helpers who are going to lead a discussion about how things are going in the program, and you can give some feedback. And we'll talk a lot more in a moment here about how those breakout rooms are going to work. I would ask that when you do go into your breakout room, if you could turn on your video and have some interaction. We really want to have some interaction. For right now, we'll keep everybody muted while we're having the main lecture. So with that brief explanation, I am going to have an opening prayer, and then I'll work on getting my screen shared here so we can jump right into this medical lecture. Let's bow our heads for prayer, if you would. Dear God, we are just so thankful for this time together. We are thankful that you want us to be healthy, and I'm thankful for each individual who is taking this time to pursue that goal of being healthier. I ask that each person will meet the goals they've set for themselves. I ask that you will be with me and the other leaders on this program as we are trying to make information accessible, helpful, and understandable. Bless us all as we pursue better health. For your name's sake, we pray. Amen. Well, let us proceed through this program. First of all, I just want to again welcome every single one of you to the Best Way program. We believe this will be a life-changing experience for you and a good way to lose some unwanted pounds. I'm Dr. Eric Nelson. I'm a colorectal surgeon, and I have a passion for lifestyle medicine because if everybody in this country followed the information that we're going to give you today, I would be out of a job within about 2 years. So this is life-changing information. Not only will it keep you from having to see your friendly proctologist, it will also help you lose some weight. A little bit of history about Best Way. Dr. Elvin Adams developed this program back in 1974. He's board certified in internal medicine. He's a specialist in public health, and he has decades of experience treating obesity and many other public health concerns. So we're very thankful that he's actually willing, through the miracle of the internet, to be with us on this program, and you'll be seeing him next week. Some of you are lucky enough to actually be assigned to his breakout room as well. Best Way has been used all across the United States and even around the world. I just got a couple emails just a month ago from a couple programs that are running in Australia, and they're doing very well. A little bit of history here. That Best Way is very sound. We use the most up-to-date nutritional information and nutritional science, and we use studies about real people. We're not going to be sharing with you information that's based on animal models or information based on Petri dish studies. We're going to share studies of real people, and it really works. Over the last 50 years, Dr. Adams can promise you that many people in this program, if you put it into practice, it will work for you. You'll probably lose between 10 and 20 pounds. Some people will lose more than that if they are really aggressive about the program and if they are significantly overweight to begin with. Some people have lost over 100 pounds. That usually involves several Best Way programs, not just one Best Way program. That would be a little bit unhealthy to lose weight that quickly. Most of you know that obesity is a pandemic in our country. It's more of a pandemic than COVID, that's for sure. Tennessee is right in the middle of the worst part of that pandemic, as you can see. Georgia is not far behind, and some of you from some other states have probably a little bit healthier than us here in Tennessee. But as you can see, Tennessee, more than 35% of adults are obese, and it's only getting worse with time. Now, how do you measure obesity? Body mass index is the scientific way to measure obesity, and you can easily calculate this using a number of online calculators, just using your phone. If you search for BMI calculator, input your weight in pounds and your height in inches, it will calculate it for you. There's the equation on the screen if you're interested. It's pounds times 703 divided by inches squared. It's a little bit easier if you know your kilograms and meters squared there. The other way to know if you're obese is just look at a recent photo or look in the mirror. Most of us have a pretty good idea of where the unwanted pounds are and what we want to do about it. Now, obesity is not just a problem of appearance. Obesity is a problem that causes a lot of other diseases. You probably know that coronary artery disease is the #1 cause of death in this country, and obesity causes that. Obesity is the #1 risk factor after smoking for coronary artery disease. And stopping smoking cessation over the last several decades has improved our quality of life and length of life in this country, but the fact that obesity is ramping up so rapidly has erased those gains. These other conditions on the screen and many others are also related to obesity. So how do you treat obesity? There's many options. Many of you are familiar with surgery for obesity. During residency, I did several gastric bypass surgeries, and this is a life-saving option for some people, but it's certainly not first line. There's other things rather than going under the surgeon's knife that most of us would probably prefer. There are many diet books. Every single year, there's lots and lots of new diet books that comes out. Of course, exercise is very effective for weight loss, but it turns out that exercise alone has its limits when it comes to weight loss. And in fact, it's not even the most important thing, although it is important, and we're going to talk a lot about exercise. What about drugs? Can you take drugs for weight loss? Of course you can take drugs for weight loss. There's lots of weight loss prescriptions that you can take, but there are many potential side effects of these prescriptions. As someone who does surgeries, I'm aware that I have to get patients off these weight loss drugs so before I can do surgeries. That's Michael over there getting himself a drink. Sorry about that little interruption there. Michael's back to his job of assigning rooms and names here right now. So drugs are really not a great option because one of the big side effects is that you have to go off the drug at some point. And when you do go off the drug, there's frequently a rebound effect. So this is not a long-term strategy for weight loss. There are many commercial diet programs that most of you are familiar with, several of these on the screen, and they can be effective. There's nothing wrong with them. They can be very expensive, but they can also work as well. And then, of course, there's the Best Way program, and that's what you are all here for tonight. It's inexpensive. In fact, for each one of you, it's free, although you should know that thousands and thousands of dollars are put into this program as far as developing it, as well as putting it on. It's sponsored by the South Bay Seventh-day Adventist Church, and it's our way of giving back to the community. You should know that there are probably about 30 people that are working on this program to make it work for you. And every single one of them are volunteering their time, their effort, their energy. So it is definitely a way that our church tries to volunteer to help the community. There's some advantages to the Best Way program. First off, there's nothing fancy that you have to buy. You don't have to go out and buy fancy exotic foods at strange shopping. Not that any of those foods are bad. Those honestly look pretty good. I love dragon fruit. But you don't have to go out and buy fancy foods. You don't have to go out and make weird protein drinks. There's no need to make yourself fancy shakes. You don't have to keep track of exchange lists. There's nothing like that that you need to master. There are no calories to count. Believe it or not, we are not going to ask you to count calories. There are no pills or vitamins. We don't recommend in general medications. We don't recommend vitamins. We don't recommend supplements. We're not going to ask you to take any vitamin pills or supplements. Most of all, we think that the Best Way program is fun, and I think you're going to find that that is true. What I'm going to run through for the rest of my my health lecture this evening are the basic components that make the Best Way program work. We're going to be expanding on each one of these components over the next 10 weeks, but these are the basics, and I want you to understand how we're going to put it together for you tonight. The first component of Best Way is nutrition. In general, we recommend whole food, plant-based diet. We're not going to force you to change what you eat. We're recommending that you consider eating more whole food, plant-based diet. I think that you will understand the reasons for that as we go forward. We would suggest you eat less processed foods and especially less of the ultra processed foods. You should just probably avoid those things altogether. I think all of us know those things aren't good for us. We would recommend you avoid food substitutes. We don't recommend nutritional supplements or chemicals. We just recommend people eat good food. Second, Best Way recommends mild exercise. The best exercise that we recommend is walking. And we're going to talk with you about how to do the walking. Dr. Laura Lucas has some excellent lectures she's prepared that we'll be starting next time. And I want to introduce you to her a little bit later this evening. We want you to use the large muscle groups in your arms or your legs. Most of us should walk. I do have a few patients that are not able to walk, and they can do some exercises with their arms or chair exercises, and we're going to be talking about some of that. We want you to exercise daily, at least 5 days a week, preferably 6 days a week. We want you to take one day off, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Aim for about 30 minutes every single day. And I will tell you, this is my weakness. I need to get more exercise. And during this program, I'm going to make some decisions, and I'm going to make some commitments, and I'm going to get more exercise myself. Next, Best Way believes in behavior modification. Some of you may need to adjust the frequency of your meals. Some of you may need to control the amount of snacks that you are taking in. Some of you may need to adjust your portion size. Portion size is very important. Some of you may need to adjust the timing of when you eat your meals. Again, we'll be talking more about all of these things. We'll also be talking about making informed food choices. We want you to make intelligent choices when you come to the grocery store. There are some ways that you can motivate yourself. There are ways that we can help you with that. And we're going to talk with you about motivation. We're going to talk with you about willpower and how to strengthen your willpower. We want to give you some determination and the ability to exercise it. And finally, number five, we strongly believe that there is a spiritual component to every single one of us. And that spiritual component can help us or hinder us in our desire to gain weight. And so we're going to talk with you about gaining spiritual strength, which will help you in all the stress that you're going to have trying to lose some unwanted pounds. One component of that is prayer. We know that prayer can help you change your eating habits and lose weight. So we're going to talk about that. Another aspect of the spiritual aspect is reading and meditation. We're going to give you some readings that you can do. Finally, there's a lot of flexibility. There is no one Best Way diet. We are not going to prescribe for you exactly what to eat. You decide. You are the one who is going to decide what to eat. However, we do want to help you make good food choices. This is an example of a bad food choice. This is an example of a much better food choice. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. That flexibility is going to be a part of your workbook every single night called New Directions. Every single time we get together in our small groups, there's a section of the workbook that we want you each to read over and make commitments, see which directions, which changes you can make that are going to work best for you to encourage you in your weight loss journey. Though we'll supply some options, you'll develop your own meal plan. A plan that you can maintain because you developed it, you can live with it. Let's look at some of the specific ways that we're going to be working with Best Way. Here are 7 simple rules for success. The reason we think rules are important, they simplify your decision making, they create some reference points. Best Way has 7 rules that we want you to be thinking about. Here are the rules. Number 1, eat less at each meal. It's very simple. Don't count calories. Don't weigh your food. We're not going to ask you to measure your food. All we want you to do is look at your plate and estimate that you are eating a little bit less. That's the goal. No second helpings. Just make sure it's less and record your meal score. We'll talk about what that is here in just a moment. Set regular times to eat. 3 meals a day is fine. 2 meals is fine. Don't skip breakfast, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Again, record your meal score. Here's what we mean by a meal score. All you do every meal is look at your plate. Ask yourself the question, is that about the same, a little bit more, a little bit less? How much is that compared to what I normally eat? And you can see the score that corresponds to whatever it is you estimate about that meal. If you skip the meal completely, you get a 6. If it's about the same, you get a 2. Here's some pictures about what might be about the same. If that's about the amount you eat, again, that's all you're going to eat at that meal. Everything you're going to eat is on the plate, no second helpings. If you eat a little bit less, then score a 3. If you eat 50% less, then you would score a 4. If you eat a lot less, give yourself a score of 5. And of course, if you skip the meal, you get a 6. We're not recommending you skip that many meals, but many people find that skipping an evening meal or skipping their noon meal, and we'll talk a little bit more about intermittent fasting. If you're eating a lot more, well, that's not so good. We don't want you to eat more, and you would get a 1 or a 0 score depending on that. Okay? So rule number 1, just eat less and record your score. Rule number 2, no between meal snacks. Just drink lots of water. Don't nibble before your meals. Don't finish things up after the meals. No candy, no gum, no sugarless drinks, and then record your snack score. Here's how you score that. If you didn't have any snacks, you get a 4. And if you did have some snacks, well, you can see how you would score those. Again, all these scoring systems are going to be written down for you. You don't have to memorize any of this. Don't worry about that. We'll give you a card if you don't have one already that explains how to keep score about your snacks. Rule number 3, give up certain foods. Most of us have some bad habits when it comes to food. There's some foods that, we don't really need them for good nutrition. My personal food that I don't really need for good nutrition, when I go in the doctor's lounge at the hospital, there's a big cookie jar, and I love cookies. And so frequently, in fact, pretty much every single meal, I'll eat a cookie or maybe 2, and I don't need that. So that would be an example of a food that's relatively high in fat. It's high in calories. I eat it fairly frequently. That's something I could just give up for this program. So pick 1 or more foods that are high in fat that you eat frequently, that just for this program, you're going to avoid those foods. Now, let's give a little caveat to that. Although we want you to not to eat it almost every single day, if just once a week you have to have that food, that's okay. Just once a week, no penalty. Go ahead and have that food just once a week. So for myself, I would get a cookie from the cookie jar once a week, but no more. So on that one day, you can score a 4, but on all the other days, try to avoid that in order to get the optimal score. The 4th rule for success is exercise. Again, we'll have a whole lecture on this. We'll talk about it every single week. Walking is the best exercise. Most of us can walk, doesn't require any special equipment. Even if it's pretty cold outside, you can still bundle up and go walking. Outdoors is probably best. Get some fresh air, sunshine. But if you really need to walk indoors, there are places to do that. The mall is one good example that I know people go. If you want to bicycle, you want to swim, you want to do step aerobics, whatever you want to do, doesn't matter. But walking is something all of us can do. Make sure if you're getting into an extremely aggressive exercise program that you ask your doctor about that. But in general, walking should be safe for all of us. Again, here's how you score your exercise. If you exercise for an hour, you get a score of 6. Our goal is that all of us would be exercising about 30 minutes every day, and you see the scores kind of fall off there. Now, 1 time per week, you can take a day off exercise. Sometimes our muscles need to recover, and it's healthy to take 1 day off a week and not exercise. So that 1 day when you're not exercising, you can score yourself a 4. But in general, let's exercise 5 or 6 days a week. Our 5th rule for success is prayer. Pray to start the day, pray before meals, pray between meals, pray when you win, pray when you lose, and record your prayer scores. If you prayed 3 or more times a day, you get a score of 3. And twice or once, you can see the scores there. If you don't pray at all, you get a score of 0. And we'll see why this is very important in just a second. Number 6, read encouraging words. We are going to give you, as part of the workbook assignments, a daily reading assignment from the Bible. These are encouraging texts that have to do with motivation, overcoming temptation, and those types of things. So read it, think it through, ask yourself how it can apply to your life, and then keep score. Here's how you keep score. It's simple. Did you do your reading today? If you did, you get a score of 2. If you didn't do your reading that day, you get a score of 0. 7th rule for success, the last rule. Contact your group leader. All of you in a moment are going to go to some breakout rooms, and in each breakout room, there should be, ideally anyway, if they all are able to get on the internet tonight, 2 group leaders. Those group leaders, you need to swap cell phone numbers with them. We want you every single day to text your group leader and tell them how you're doing every day. This is a form of accountability. This is seeking encouragement from them. You want to report success. You want to report failure. Daily contact is the goal here. We know from lots of randomized controlled trials, this is a key for you losing weight. The expectation again is once a day, you will take the initiative and send a text message to your group leader. Once a week, I want you and the group leader to be on the phone talking, and we'll explain a little bit more about that in just a moment. So once a day, text message. Once a week, a phone call, just a brief phone call to talk about how things are going. Probably on a Thursday right before the program, right after the program, or on a Friday. Those would be the best days to kind of keep this phone call somewhat near when we are doing these lectures. And I'll explain why again in just a moment. Keep score. Did you make contact with your group leader via text message or phone call? Yes, you did. You get a score of 3. No, you didn't. You get a score of 0. This is how we're going to keep you accountable. So all of these scores come together in a scorecard that you will fill out daily. When I'm done with this lecture, I will show you where you can get this scorecard and download it and print it out. If you cannot print something out, please let your group leader know, get your address. We will mail you a scorecard for the whole program. You need 10 scorecards, 9 scorecards, I guess. 9 scorecards, because you're going to be filling this out every single day. This is what the scorecard looks like on the front, and we'll show you the back in a moment. In your groups, you'll go over this in a little bit more detail. You must carry this card with you at all times. You must do this if you want this program to work for you. If you are not filling out your scorecard, this program is not going to be working for you. Don't leave it on your dresser. Don't leave it in the kitchen. Don't fill it out at the end of the day. Keep it with you. Fill it out as you are going. It's pretty self-explanatory. Fill out your name. Right up at the top, you would write down week 1, because we're starting week 1 here. You would write down your starting weight. Use the same scale to weigh yourself every single week, but don't weigh yourself every single day. Just weigh yourself maybe today or tonight, and then right before you turn in your scorecard next week before the lecture on Thursday, weigh yourself once more. Okay, so we want a starting weight and an ending weight for every week. You don't need to weigh yourself every single day. Write down your group number so we can keep track of that on your card. And then the dates. Today is the 27th. So right here, where this person wrote down a 12, you would write down 1/28. You would write down 1/28, and then 1/29, 1/30, etc. Write the dates right across the top of your scorecard. And then here's where you'll be keeping those scores. For the first day, you're going to record a breakfast, lunch, and dinner score, snack score, etc., etc. You'll review this again in your breakout sessions. This is what this card looks like on the back. You don't have to memorize any of that information I just went over about how to score. It's all on the back of the card for you. Well, you might be wondering what's a good score. Here's 2 samples from this individual. On the 12th of whatever month they were in, they, on the first day, did pretty well. They got a score of 34. That's an excellent score. They ate a little bit less for breakfast, skipped lunch, and ate a lot less for dinner. Didn't snack, didn't eat their food, so we walked a reasonable amount. They prayed, they studied, and they contacted their group leader. Well, on the 15th, they didn't do quite as well. They ate a little bit less food, but the same for dinner. They were snacking. They were eating some of those foods. They walked for 30 minutes, which is good, but they didn't pray and they didn't contact their group helper. So their score wasn't nearly as good. So that gives you an idea of what scores are good versus bad. As part of your workbook that you're going to print out, there's a place to keep track of your weight loss record. This is going to be private. The only person that will know this is you, your group leader, and our data entry person that we'll talk about in just a moment. And we want you to keep track of your weight loss. We keep track of weight loss as an aggregate to measure the effectiveness of this program. And those of you who lose a lot of weight, you're probably going to be very proud about it and happy to talk about it. Again, this person went from 186 the beginning of their first week down to 184 at the beginning of their next week. And so they're just keeping track of their weight loss results. So here's some examples of what happened in Crowley, Texas. They had several Best Way programs down there. And this is why I don't want you to skip breakfast. These are some normalized data or standardized data from the Crowley, Texas program demonstrating why every single one of these aspects that we are measuring is important. Those who studied the Bible more were more likely to lose more weight. Those who prayed were more likely to lose more weight. Those who avoided the foods they decided they were going to avoid lost more weight. Those who avoided snacking lost more weight, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a mystery. But I just want to demonstrate those who contacted their helpers. This is one of the most powerful things you can do to keep yourself accountable and to ask others to support you in your weight loss journey. But notice that those who skipped breakfast, they didn't lose more weight. Even though you might see that 6 on your scorecard and think that's a good thing, it is not a good thing to skip breakfast. We don't recommend it. We want you to eat a big breakfast. And if you have to skip a meal, probably skip supper. That's probably a better idea. So this program has worked for a lot of people. With that, I'm going to conclude this lecture, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I'll actually do this a little bit later. Right now, I would like to introduce Pastor Chris Anderson. Pastor Chris Anderson is the pastor of the South Bay Seventh-day Adventist Church. He's been our pastor for the last 6 years, and he is a big proponent of healthy living. And I'm just so thankful he's willing to give us a short spiritual inspiration as part of this Best Way program. This is one of the highlights of the program for me. I'll turn the time over to him.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see you. I just want to thank Dr. Nelson for hosting this program. And I just am a big fan of Best Way. I have been to every Best Way for the last 4 or 5 years that we have done it. I'm going to tell you, every year I come back and I get new insights. I know a number of you have come back for a refresher yourself. You took it last year or the year before, and you're coming back to just remind yourself of these principles. I do that every year. I go through Best Way. And I tell you what, at the end of Best Way, I feel just so much better. So I don't just advocate this program. I live this program. This is the way I eat. This is the way I live. And you really, really feel good running through this. I want to tell you about my grandfather. His name was W.T. And W.T. was one of those individuals in my life that when I went and visited, I called him Peepaw. When I went and visited Peepaw, he just had a wise way of saying things, and I always listened to him. He said, Christopher, if you're going to have a pocket knife, it should be sharp. You should never have a dull knife. And even now, when all of my knives, I keep them really sharp because my grandpa taught me that. He had a pony out in his field, and he says, Chris, whenever I'm not here, you should not get on that pony. You should never get on that pony unless I'm here. Well, as a young boy, I thought I could handle a pony just fine without him. And so I slipped out in the field, put a halter on him. I put a saddle on him, and I got on that pony, and he bucked me right over his head. And he told me one day, he says, Christopher, you see that rooster right there? Never go near that rooster. He will peck you to pieces. Well, sure enough, I got too close to that rooster one day, and he just lit into me. My grandpa had lots of wise sayings, and he was wise because he had been around a long time. He had experienced a lot of life, and he could speak to me and give me wisdom. So I want to share with you about some wisdom, something that's older than all of us, and that's the Bible. I just want to share a thought out of the Bible. Now, in Best Way, we recognize that you are more than just a body. I mean, we all agree with that. Like, I'm not just a body. I also have a brain. We have a mind. We have an intellect. We also have feelings and emotions. We have a body. We have our emotions. We have our mind, and we are also a spiritual person that is true as well. And we recognize that reality, and it's a part of your health, and it will impact you. So I want to tell you a story out of the Old Testament in the Scriptures. It's in 2 Kings chapter 5, and it's a story about a man who was a really powerful general. He was not a general for God. In fact, he was an enemy to God's people. He was a very powerful man, and the Bible says about him that he was a mighty man in his country. I mean, he was very well known for his deeds in war. But it says something specific, something that we could all kind of feel sympathetic towards him. It says that he was a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. Now, that word leper doesn't really affect us today. We're not as terrified about it now like they were in those days. But it was perceived to be highly infectious, though as we have learned more about leprosy or Hansen's disease, it's not nearly as infectious as it was thought. It was spread by coughing or mucus. So if someone was coughing or sneezing and that got on you, it could help transfer this chronic bacterial infection to you. And it could take 1 year, it could take 5 years, it could take 20 years before these symptoms would begin to manifest. But there was no cure in those days, and it was a death sentence, a slow, painful death sentence. It attacks your nerves, and you don't feel. And so people would bruise things, and then they would get an infection, and they would lose fingers. Their facial skin would get thick, and they would get muscle weakness. It was scary. People were terrified of you. No one wanted to be around you. It was an isolating disease because they would put you off on your own. It was terrifying. Now, you probably didn't realize this, but leprosy is still around. In 2018, there was 200 people in the United States that contracted leprosy. But thankfully, we have the medications and the interventions now to take care of it. It's no longer a problem. But in Naaman's day, it was a serious problem. There was no medications in his day, and this was a complete death sentence. Well, he, in his deeds of war, had captured a young lady, and she was one of the servants in his house, and she felt really bad for him. That was really generous of her. I mean, if I was captured in another country and a slave for someone, I don't know how generous I would feel, but she felt bad for him. And she told him that in her country, Israel, there is a prophet who could heal. So in desperation, willing to do anything to gain his health and not to die this way, this man humbled himself, and he traveled all the way to Israel. And through a series of events, he ended up outside the door of the prophet of God, and knocked on the door, or one of his servants knocked on the door. And Elisha was the prophet. And Elisha didn't even come to the door. He sent his servant out, and his servant told him this. I want to read this to you. This is 2 Kings chapter 5 and verse 10. Go wash in the Jordan 7 times. This is the Jordan River. And your flesh will be restored, and you shall come clean. That's it. That was the instructions. Simple, natural, easy. Just do this and you'll be healed. Well, the Bible tells us about Naaman that he wasn't pleased with this, because the Jordan River was kind of a muddy river, and where he came from, the rivers were clean. And he was just disgusted that he would be asked to do this. Furthermore, the prophet didn't come out to speak to him. He had certain expectations about how his healing would happen. He didn't come there with the expectation that it would happen in a simple way. He expected the prophet would come out, he would raise his hand to heaven, that he would speak some dramatic thing, and then he would be healed. He was expecting a quick, dramatic healing. But that's not what happened. He was given the simple advice: go wash in the river in a natural way, and you will be healed. Well, he stormed off in a rage. And as he was traveling away, his servants came up beside him, and they waited for him to cool down a little bit. And they said, Master, if Elisha had asked you to do some great thing, like, wouldn't you have done it? Well, of course I would. Well, he asked you to do something simple. Why don't you just give it a try? Well, he saw wisdom in that. And so he went back to the Jordan River. He went down into the river, and he dipped under one time, came up. He was just the same. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. He was just the same. You see, there was specific instruction that was given. It was simple, it was natural, but it needed to be followed completely in order to experience the healing that he wanted, right? And so the 7th time he came out, and the Bible says that his skin was clean. He was healed by doing this simple thing. He had followed the instructions of the prophet, and it wasn't the water itself. God had healed him because he had obeyed the instruction that was given. And he really rejoiced. He went back to the prophet's house and he said, now I know that there's a God in heaven. And it's a beautiful ending to this story where he experienced what God desired for him to experience. You know, God doesn't desire any of us to suffer, to go through with disease and all the things that we face in this life. He has something better in store for us and better in store for you. And in this program, Best Way, we're unashamed to say that the science principles we're going to share with you are cutting edge, the latest science. I mean, this program has been revised. I'm trying to find the right word. Revised for you. It's the latest science is just pumped into this. You're going to see it as we go through. It's just amazing things. But we recognize that you're more than just a body. You're more than just a mind. You're more than just emotions. You also have a spiritual element as well. And that's a part of this program. And it's clear from the data that was shown earlier that for those who have experienced success, they have actually done the simple things that were asked in the program. They kept track of the cards. They followed through with that. They also prayed. They also read the scriptures that were there. And these individuals experienced the greatest weight loss. So I'm going to ask you the same question that Elisha's servants asked, that Naaman's servants asked him. Why don't you just give it a try? It's simple. It's natural. If you were asked to do some great thing to lose weight and restore your health, wouldn't you do it? Why not give it a try? Why not actually pray? Why not actually read these scriptures? Why not actually follow the different principles here? Just give it a try. I mean, we have to tell you that many people have gone through this program and have found weight loss. We're not selling anything to you. We're not trying to make money from you. We want you to feel good. We want you to be healthy. We want you to say, oh, I feel so great. I sleep good. I feel good. I just feel alive. We want that for you. And we know that you can experience, if you follow through with these principles, success is guaranteed. And so I'm just excited for you as you go through this program. And I'd just like to have prayer for you that God will just bless you in this. Father in heaven, I'm just so grateful for each person that's come. And I pray that you will give them the strength to follow through with this program, implement these little simple, natural things in their life. And I know there's some change, but Lord, give them the power and the strength that they need. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'll turn this back over to Dr. Nelson.
Well, thank you, Pastor Chris. I just really appreciate that thought about Naaman. I also appreciate your spiritual thoughts, and I hope each one of us are planning to give this a try. Before we go into our breakout rooms, I want to make a couple introductions. First of all, Laura Lucas is going to be our physical therapist, and she is a doctorate in physical therapy. She is going to be doing some exercise segments. That is her smiling face. So I think we're starting next week. Is that right, Dr. Laura?
That is
next
true.
week, we're going to have some information for you about specific exercise techniques that can really optimize your outcomes when it comes to exercise. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Laura.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, and I'm anxious to start.
Thank you. Rachel Detweiler is our chef. Now, Rachel Detweiler is an expert cook. Every single time I go to dinner with the doctor, I am looking forward to whatever Rachel has prepared for us. It's exceptionally good food. And starting with this Best Way program, we're actually incorporating a section called Recipes with Rachel. And Rachel's put a lot of time and effort and thought to preparing some excellent recipes. And Rachel, we just want to thank you for all of your time. What's on that book rack behind you there, Rachel?
Oh, that would be a lot of cookbooks. That's my research material.
That's Rachel's research material behind her. And that probably gives you an idea of how much knowledge she has when it comes to cooking. So thank you, Rachel, so much for your time, your effort, your energy. We're looking forward to some of the cooking demos that I know you have prepared for us. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Looking forward to sharing.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it as well. I want to make some announcements before we go to our breakout rooms. First off, I see that there are still a few people on this call who are named iPhone or just have their first name. We need you, for the sake of putting you into the right breakout room, to put your full first name and last name, or whatever name you registered under, so we can match up your registration with what room we've got you assigned to. So there's about 5 or 6 people that I see Michael has some asterisks by, but if you could give us your first name and your last name so we can keep track of who's able to come to the program. That also gives us the ability to call the few people who registered that didn't show up tonight and ask them if they still want to come.
Done with that, but
So again, ask you to put your first and your last name. You can rename yourself if you're on a phone. Even if you're on a phone, you can go up to the click on your picture, and on the upper three dots that are there, you can click that and it'll allow you to rename it. Once we go into our breakout rooms, we are going to ask you to turn on your video. So once you get into your breakout rooms, please turn on your video. We want you to be interacting with the people in your breakout room. Each one of the breakout rooms will have a couple group leaders. The most important thing to do tonight is make sure you get to know each other, introduce yourselves, get their phone number so that you guys can be doing those daily text messages back and forth. Again, once a day, we expect you to send a text to your group leader. If there's, several people in the room, probably the 2 group leaders will split up the group so that, each one of you will be contacting just one of the group leaders. And then once a week, I'll let you and each group kind of figure out how you want to do this, but I would suggest either Thursday or Friday for this phone call, there needs to be a phone call between one of the group leaders and one of the participants. As part of that, we want you to take a picture of that progress card that you're keeping track of all those scores on and send it to your group leader for them to be able to review with you and see how the program is working for you. This is very important. This is the core of what the Best Way program is about. So please figure out a way that once a week, you can take a picture of your progress card and you can send that picture to your group leader, and you guys can talk about how things are going, what's going well, what's not going well, in what ways can your group leader be helpful for you. That is incredibly important. We will keep your results very private, except for that group leader and a data entry person. No one else is going to know without your permission what your specific results are. Okay, so we will keep those very, very private. One of the other things that you'll be going over in your group tonight is a release form, a liability release form, and that's also in your workbook. And we'd like you to sign that, take a picture of it with your phone, and send that to your group leader as well. You can review all the fine print. This is not medical advice that we are giving you. We are not your personal physicians, although, as you see, there's probably 6 or 7 or 8 physicians on this call. And many physicians are group leaders, but we are not your treating physician. We're not adjusting your medications as part of this program. If you are diabetic, for example, and you're losing a lot of weight, you want to contact your primary care physician and get an appointment with them because your medications might need adjusted. So read over the fine print on that. Just make sure you understand what this program's about. We're not hiding anything. We want you to understand everything that we're asking you to sign up for here. I want to share my screen once more before we go out into these breakout rooms. And what I'm sharing here is where you can get all of the information for this program. This is our church website. You go to southbaysda.org. You see the web address right up there on the top line, southbaysda.org. And right up here in the middle is our current health program, which is Best Way. If you click that, it takes you to this page. Most of you probably went right here and clicked this link to join the Zoom meeting tonight. That will always be there, and that's your easiest way to get on these Zoom calls. I mentioned that we're going to ask Dr. Elvin Adams to answer some questions. If you have specific questions that you would like to have addressed during this program, If you click this link here, you can fill out a Google form. We will get those questions. We'll sort through them and address some of them every single evening. We've made a big deal about these progress cards. If you do not currently have a progress card, you need to click right here. You need to print this out. You can download this form to your computer by clicking in the upper left-hand corner here, or you can just print it directly off the internet. You can download it there. You can print it. You need to print this out and cut it into 4 pieces. And here's one of the scorecards that you're going to start using right now, tonight. Okay. Looks to me like I've somehow jammed myself. So let me share my screen again. If you need to recall the scores, here's another picture of the scores on the back of the card, and you could print that out front and back if you want to keep them looking nice. As you scroll down, here is the handout for tonight, Seminar 1. Your group leaders are going to be clicking right here where it says Seminar 1, and this will take you to a place where you can click on the workbook that we're all going to be discussing. If you click on that workbook, your group leaders are going to be going through this information with you tonight. You can download it, you can print it out, put your name on it, and here's kind of a table of contents for where we're going through the rest of this program. Here's class 1, and this is what your group leader is going to go over with you this evening. Those are the 7 rules for success. Again, I'll let your group leader go over it in more detail, how to do a weight loss program, picking some foods to avoid, new directions, scripture strength, and there's the release of liability that I mentioned that we need you to copy. We need you to fill out your name, sign it, and send a picture to your group leader. So again, you go to southbaysda.org, click Best Way, and all of that information is there for you.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the material that was presented this evening, and we look forward to meeting together with you in person next Thursday at 7 p.m. You'll want to make sure to download the workbook from online and go through the material that is there. Please be sure to enter your weight, your beginning weight, so that it can be kept track of there and you can see the progress moving forward. And your daily progress card, you want to make sure to download that and print it off and have it with you and begin filling it out immediately, as in Friday, January 28th. And you'll want to fill that out every single day so that you can have the best success possible. So we'll see you next week.